In the quiet corners of an old Vietnamese town lived a wealthy family, the Hines. They were known for their kindness, especially towards their loyal maid, MDN. MDN was more than just a servant. She was like family. When she became pregnant, the Hingis promised to care for her and her child, but fate had a cruel twist in store. During a difficult labor, Annie tragically passed away, leaving behind a beautiful baby girl. Heartbroken but determined to honor their promise, Mr. and Mrs. Han adopted the infant, raising her as their own alongside their young son. They named her little MDN in memory of her mother. For a while, it seemed like a new, blended family was blossoming. The children played together, their laughter echoing through the grand house. But a shadow was slowly creeping over the Han household, a chill that had nothing to do with the weather. It all started subtly. Mrs. Han, a graceful and careful woman, had a bizarre accident. While walking down the familiar staircase in her own home, she missed a step and tumbled, breaking her leg. It was strange, she told her husband later. It felt as if someone had nudged her from behind. They dismissed it as a simple misstep, an unfortunate accident. But it was only the beginning. Shortly after his wife's injury, Mr. Han, a man who had always been the picture of health, was struck by a mysterious illness. Doctors were baffled. He was plagued by high fevers, crippling fatigue, and terrifying nightmares that left him drenched in sweat, screaming in the dead of night. He grew weaker by the day, his robust frame withering away until he was a mere shadow of his former self. The once vibrant and happy home was now filled with an atmosphere of dread and anxiety. The laughter of the children was replaced by hushed whispers and the scent of medicinal herbs. The family's misfortunes took an even darker turn one evening. Their son, who usually spent his afternoons playing in the garden, went missing. A frantic search began as dusk settled, casting long, eerie shadows across the property. A servant found him. He was lying unconscious at the edge of the family land, right beside the simple, solitary grave where MDN had been laid to rest. When he finally came to, his eyes were wide with terror. He spoke in a trembling voice, recounting a chilling story. He said he had heard a woman's voice calling his name, a soft, sweet voice that sounded just like how his parents described him as. It beckoned him, pulling him towards the grave until everything went black. Panic truly set in. The Hines could no longer deny that something was deeply wrong. Was it all a string of terrible coincidences, or was a more sinister force at play? The servants began to whisper among themselves, their eyes darting nervously towards Emma's old room, which had been kept locked and untouched since her passing. They spoke of the legend of the vengeful spirit, a mother-esque ghost so attached to her child that she would harm anyone she perceived as a threat. Could Emma's gentle spirit have twisted into something malevolent, unable to rest in peace? The house itself seemed to conspire against them. Doors would slam shut in empty hallways. Objects would move on their own. A teacup sliding across a table, a book tumbling from a shelf. Cold spots would appear out of nowhere, raising goosebumps on their skin even on the warmest of days. At night, the family would hear faint, sorrowful weeping coming from the direction of Iman's grave, a sound that would send shivers down their spines and make sleep impossible. The atmosphere was thick with a palpable sense of being watched. The family, desperate for answers, decided to consult a local shaman. The old woman arrived, her eyes wise and knowing. She walked through the house, burning incense and chanting ancient prayers. When she reached Emien's locked room, she stopped dead. The air around the door, she said, was heavy with sorrow and a powerful, restless energy. She warned the Hines that Emen's spirit was not at peace. Her love for her child was so immense that it had tethered her to the world of the living. She didn't understand that the family was caring for her baby. In her spectral confusion, she saw them as people who had taken her child away. Her grief was turning into a dangerous, protective rage. The shaman performed a ceremony at MN's grave, hoping to guide her spirit to the afterlife. She pleaded with Mdine, telling her that her daughter was loved and safe, that she could finally rest. For a few days, a fragile peace settled over the house. The strange noises ceased, and Mr. Heinz's health even began to show signs of improvement. A flicker of hope returned to the family. They started to believe the nightmare was finally over. But they were wrong. The quiet was just the calm before the storm. One night, Mrs. Han was awoken by a sound. It was the faint, unmistakable creak of the floorboards outside her bedroom. Her heart pounded in her chest. Hobbling on her crutches, she slowly made her way to the door and peered through the crack. What she saw made her blood run cold. Down the long, dark hallway, a figure was moving. It was a woman draped entirely in a flowing white gown, her long black hair obscuring her face. She glided silently, not walking, but floating, her form ethereal and shimmering in the moonlight that streamed through the windows. Mrs. Han was frozen in terror, unable to scream, unable to move. The white figure didn't seem to notice her. It continued its silent journey down the hall, moving with an eerie, unnatural grace, and it was heading directly towards one specific room, a man's old, empty room at the very end of the corridor. The door, which had been locked for months, creaked open on its own as the ghostly figure approached. It slipped inside without a sound, and the door swung shut behind it, plunging the hallway back into darkness and a terrifying silence. Mrs. Han stood there, trembling, her mind racing. The shaman's warning echoed in her ears. MAN's spirit was not gone. It was here, inside their home, drawn back to the one place that was hers. The peace had been a lie. The vengeful mother had returned, and her intentions were terrifyingly unclear. What did she want? Was she there to watch over her child, or was she there to take her back? The family was trapped in a house haunted by a love so powerful it had defied death itself, a love that was now their greatest terror. They knew, with a certainty that chilled them to the bone, that the true horror had only just begun. The question was no longer if they could appease the spirit, but if they could survive her. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more chilling dailies. Let me know in the comments what you think the family should do next. See you in the next video.